Adam, cool glasses, you got an eye problem. And we're in Fiji.
Yeah, it's hopefully just a very temporary one. I was having to take all the antifoul and primer off my keel, so there's a lot of grinding, and I think I've got something in my eye, but
yeah,
I'll live and it'll be fine.
You look like a blowfly, it's okay.
Okay.
So how do you feel besides that? You know, like being in Fiji, it's a long way from home, even though they're in summer and probably hotter than us.
Yeah, they're having a good summer back in Blighty. I think it's a nice English summer, but it's really great to be in Fiji. I was really got quite nervous in that short last stop from Tonga to Fiji, because it was such a goal to arrive in Fiji that you didn't want anything to go wrong.
Yeah.
And we had a few difficult sailing conditions with quite a lot of headwinds, and then we had reefs to get through at the end. So it was just a joy to get here, and the welcome we got in Fiji was amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, singing and dancing, and they're such a good team here.
Yeah,
great
absolutely. Fun. Yeah, no, it's a nice place to be. Anyway, so you know, were you a daytime or nighttime arrival? I forget.
I was daytime. Sorry, I was early evening, if you remember.
Early evening, that's right. It was late in the day, and you came straight in.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that must have been a buzz. You came through the reef in daylight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a little. I try to get through the first reef, and then it allows you to have, kick plan B in if you need to. So I kicked plan B and went through the second reef, and then lost a little bit of wind, but then we got a sea breeze in the afternoon and had a nice calm sail down to Vunda, so it was great.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. So, and now you've got a complete perspective on what you've what you can see the MGR is, even though there's a long way to go. Was that part of your plan from the beginning was to build the boat, do the MGR, right?
Yeah.
And in the beginning, when you decided, okay, MGR's for you, your dream compared to what's happening now, is it better, worse, indifferent, the same, whatever? How do you describe that?
I think if you'd asked me that question after the first leg, or when I arrived in the Marquesas, I would say it was not what I was hoping it would be. The sailing was great, but just settling into the MGR, the race aspect, has taken me a little while. Now I can safely say it's surpassed all my expectations. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm in love with my boat. She's really looking after me, as I think all the 580s are, and I've settled into the race aspect because I've never raced before. I've only cruised, so having that extra dynamic was something that was very foreign to me, and I struggled with that a little bit at the beginning, but now I'm absolutely loving it. We've got a really good mid-division in the race with 4 or 5 of us, and we're having a great fun racing against each other in the middle, and I'm absolutely loving it. It's right up there, really is.
Interesting comments, saying that getting used to the whole idea of the MGR and so on. I'm just going to expand on that a little bit, because it's something that a lot of people forget. It's a huge investment in time and money and effort, but also it's coming to terms with what the reality of the dream really is. Yeah. When you're torture boarding, it's a horror show. Sanding the hull and all that, you got to keep pushing through. Yeah. So can you just expand a bit? Like the challenges of the event. I'm imagining it's getting all the safety gear together, doing all the paperwork, all the regulation stuff, and then all the the whole thing settling into the boat. The whole pressure of Panama. Out of the water, in the water. Can you expand on those things that maybe you weren't expecting that made you say it's not quite what you thought early on?
I think the build was technically and physically and time more than I'd expected. So that was hard, and I'd still say of everything I've done within the MGR, the build was the most difficult part, because it's nervous. If you haven't done it before, you want to get it right. You're not having a day sail, you're sailing oceans, so you can't get it wrong. I think the sailing, I hadn't sailed the boat very much before, so I felt slightly that perhaps I was shouldn't really be here. I didn't have the required skills. I was a little bit nervous. I was quite unsure of myself. So
An imposter syndrome.
a little bit of that. In fact, probably quite a lot of that in reality. And then, you know, it just does, well, with me anyway, it just does take time. And each leg, each pit stop, you know, one's self-confidence grows. I think from Tahiti onwards, you know, with the camaraderie that we've all got, everybody's helping each other. It's just, yeah, just surpassed all of my expectations now.
Yeah. Plus everyone's it's really interesting part of it, because I mean, you turned up with one of the best prepared boats of the whole fleet. Best built, best prepared, all that. I'm not saying the best, but
Yeah.
it was right up there. You're a sailing instructor with the sailing. What I see is something that evolves around the lines of, I haven't done it before, so, you know, can I do this sort of thing? It's the challenge, and that's interesting to hear it, because that's one of the things with all our events. We have these little qualifying bits, so we don't say no straight away, because we, as you probably know, I won't say we took a lot of flack, but we had certain comments from people with Jasmine, for instance, when Jasmine said, "Oh, I can't sail," but she's off around the world.
Yeah.
But in my mind, she's always been perfectly safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so you've been drawn in to the point where you can finally see that you can now do this. And in my opinion, you've always had the ability to do it, but you've got a normal human reaction where you haven't done it before and you think, oh, it's around the world and so on. So it's very interesting. You're the first one that's verbalised that, but I'm sure a lot of others have gone through the same thing.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's, you know, never having sailed across an ocean, and also up against some, it didn't take me long before you realise you've got some really top class sailors in the competition. And I think that just was all a little bit unsettling. And then, as I say, you ease into it, and now it's just wonderful.
Yeah, well, you're doing well, so so that's cool. What do you know, we're only like, well, we're about 12,000 miles into it from Portugal.
Yeah.
It's 24,000 miles around the world, so let's just say it's halfway, and it's not.
Yeah.
We've still got about 16,000 to go.
Yeah.
But where's the big highlight? What's one of the big wow moments of that's happened between, you know, say Panama and here, just in this second leg, that was sort of like the peak? Wow, you could scream, whatever.
Well, I did a lot of whooping and screaming when we left Antigua, because that was, you know, the worry about all of these sort of big projects that you do is you never quite get to the start.
Yeah.
Something goes wrong.
Plenty didn't, you know. Plenty didn't.
Well, I'm sure. So that little parade we did in Falmouth Harbour, and crossing the start line and getting going, was a real highlight. So, you know, even if I only made it to Panama, then I'd achieved half of what I wanted to achieve, which was enter the race and get there and be prepared to get through the start, get through all the safety checks, do all the, you know, the hoops that you've got to jump through. So that was a big highlight. I really enjoyed the doldrums, actually, because I'm a lover of wildlife, and you were seeing so much in that flat water around Galapagos. And the whale that came up alongside Little Wren was a real highlight, probably twice the size of my boat, only 20 yards off the boat. So that was a real highlight. And I think, you know, I have to say my little current record of 160 miles in 24 hours.
You still got it.
I keep chatting to Renault about that, and he hasn't given up on trying to beat it, as I'm sure everybody hasn't. But that was quite fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that, and that was sort of a little bit of planning that came right, so that was great. I really enjoy you know, when we get that sort of 18 to 25 knots of wind and the boat really flies. You know, it just feels like you're getting the best out of the boat in those conditions. And when you're averaging 6 knots for, you know, 8 hours, 12 hours, it's very exciting. So there's lots of highlights, but I guess those are probably the best.
Yeah, I'm seeing really good social media posts from you and filming and stuff. Are you planning to make a film or something, or at the end, do you think?
I don't know. Well, my partner and charity, Ella Dawson Foundation, are talking about putting something together at the end. We're going to try and do a really big push when I get back, with some further fundraising activities, and I think there's maybe some media going to come together for that.
Yeah.
I've got plenty of footage, but I don't have any of the skills to put anything together. But I think they'll help, and maybe something will come from that.
Yeah, I hope so. It's all good fun.
Yeah,
it's because you're a sailing instructor.
Yeah.
And I know this. Just part of your students, many of your students, probably all of your students, think you're suitably crazy.
Yeah.
And you know, how do you quantify that situation? You know, have you seen a change since you've started? You know.
Yeah. Well,
since you're into it.
I keep in touch with quite a few of my students, and they're often messaging me following. And it was one thing, you know, on a day skipper course, chatting about what my plans are and building this boat, and everybody was quite excited. What I'm really looking forward to is being able to share some of the stories when I get back, and I'll be the real deal at that stage rather than just talking a game. So, but yeah, I think with day skipper students, it's the start of their journey on the sea, and I'd like the idea that I could inspire a few people. Here I am, 61. Nearly 62, never sailed an ocean, hadn't really done many long passages, and I'm in the middle of a single-handed round-the-world race. So this is really doable for Joe Bloggs, for the man in the street. It really is, and I think sailing does have that elitist feel to it, certainly in the UK. You need lots of money, you need to be really well connected, and what this race has provided is a relatively manageable, in terms of money, way of doing what I think an awful lot of people would like to do, but just think it's way beyond them. And I'd say my message is it isn't way beyond them.
Yeah, I agree. You can even put it on a trailer and take it home. Yeah. You know, it keeps the cost down.
Yeah.
All very interesting. I just want to ask you about, I mean, sometimes I feel a bit embarrassed. You know, the event has a charity, which is Citran, you know, which is motor neurone disease, Sheffield Institute in the UK. You know, really good stuff. Alzheimer's, you know, Parkinson's, dementia, all those sorts of neurological issues. And I'm always so busy, I forget to promote and, you know, push it as much as we could and should, because we've only got a small team and blah, 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 blah. Here's you're the one in the fleet that's really, you know, some of the others have got support causes and things like that, but you're really doing a good job. And I must admit, I'm starting to think, because I watch the ocean rowers, you know what I mean, and it's mandatory more or less to have a charity to enter the event. Yeah. And I'm seeing what you're doing and thinking, oh, you're raising some, you know, quite serious money. You hope to raise more. It's creating awareness, and that's just one entrant. Yeah. How much work is it? You know, how do you feel about what you're doing and things like that? Because I mean, who knows? You know, we may say for 29, so okay, to enter you've got to pick a charity and maybe push it, because I think it's a good way to do just a sideline thing and inspire more people and work together on stuff. What's your take?
I think for me the important thing is the Ella Dawson Foundation is run by Jane, Kevin and Tasha Dawson, and I know them, and they inspire me, and they're in my thoughts a lot. Therefore, I just talk about the Ella Dawson Foundation a lot, and it's not a sort of faceless large charity. It's a very small charity doing a really, really important thing. I've got a personal connection because my mother lost her brother from leukemia as well when he was just 7 years old. So that was another reason to support. And I'd been looking for a charity for a while and met the Dawsons fairly late on, about 6 months before the race. And we just hooked up, got together. We all get on very well. And I would say just, you know, I'm in contact with them at least every week, messaging, doing videos, so they're friends really. It's not, you know, anybody raising money for charity is great, but I find it's easier because of the dynamic between me and them. And in terms of the work involved, 99% of it is Ella Dawson Foundation. I just respond, I keep in contact, I provide as much content as I can, and whenever they ask me to do something, I say yes. So, but they're doing all the grunt work.
Yeah. I'm thinking we will just make it very clear. We'll encourage people to pick up a charity. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, just whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you think, you know, I'll ask us what potentially is a silly question because it's the most common one, but I'm trying to get a bit deeper than that. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Yeah.
I'd say if I was to have popped my clogs tomorrow, would there be anything that I would be really proud to leave as a legacy for my kids to inspire them? And 2 years ago, I wouldn't be able to put my finger on anything. But this, I think, if I can complete this, and everything that's involved in it, the build, it's a massive story of self-motivation all the way through, then that's probably the reason.
Yeah. So it wasn't at the beginning. At the beginning, it was just a fun idea, but now you consider it to be life-defining.
No, it was always at the beginning. I started building the boat because I wanted to do this, and that was in my mind right from the beginning.
Yeah.
So what's become life-defining is the actual experience of doing it.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned before, my level of enjoyment and sort of deep satisfaction is just growing and growing and growing. And that took a little while to start happening, but it's there now. So yeah, in terms of personally, yes, I think it's certainly become life-defining.
Yeah.
But in terms of the reasons for doing it at the beginning, I think a bit of a legacy of this sort would do no harm to inspire.
Do you think it's changing you in any way, in some ways?
I guess
changing who you are?
I feel like I'm just a very relaxed person right now, and I hope I'm pretty good company. And there's times that all my friends and family will tell you that I'm not very relaxed and not very good company. So I think the real question will be answered when I'm back at home, and what I'm going to do then. And I have no idea right now, but if I could retain this level of satisfaction, enjoyment and contentment, then that would be amazing.
Yeah. So do you see, obviously it's good, things are going to get tougher as we get further around, but everyone's more competent because they know their boats now and all that sort of stuff. What do you perceive to be the biggest risk between here and the finish, the risk to you?
I would say more navigational rather than weather based.
Really?
So yeah, I would say making sure you don't hit rocks in one form or another is probably, as I would see it, the biggest risk. I think heavy weather is a risk, but it's a risk of very different sort, and these boats are designed to be able to batten down the hatches, and if that's what we need to do, then we do that. But if you get caught in a situation near reefs with either little wind or tide against through whatever reason, then there's we just don't have that ability to motor out of problems. So that I would see that as the biggest risk, hitting rocks.
Yeah. Okay. It's interesting. I think it's a feedback from sailing in England, UK.
Yeah.
All the tides, currents, all that sort of stuff. Because reefs are like, you can anchor behind every reef. It's like a free breakwater all the way through the reef,
Yeah. Yeah.
We can talk about that more, but anyway.
Yeah.
But that's very interesting. Okay. And so what about give me a run through of your typical 24-hour day from sunrise to sunrise.
Okay.
What happens?
So I normally wake up at first light and check the boat out, make myself some breakfast, which is normally some muesli and a cup of tea, and then turn on my Starlink, check for messages, send a message back to Kerry saying everything's okay, and then check all the weather forecasts and see what I'm expecting for the next 6, 12, 18 hours, and then do a thorough boat check in terms of fittings and any particular chafe problems or furler problems, and then just ease into the day in terms of the sailing. Ideally it will be a day that I don't have to have my hand on the tiller very much, because I'm not a fan of hand steering. So setting the wind vane, hoping that the the speed and direction of the wind doesn't change too much, and ease into a relaxing morning. I tend to be sort of fairly busy in the mornings. From midday onwards, when it gets very hot, I'll have something to eat and then sleep for an hour or two in the afternoon, and then be on call again pretty actively until dusk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then during the night?
During the night. So I have a 2-hour watch system if I'm not anywhere near land, and I very rarely need the alarm to wake me up, but I set it for every 2 hours. Sometimes I don't get out of bed, so I'll look up to see the Windex, which gives you lots of information.
What do you got? You got a skylight?
I can just
little hatch, just a thing.
I can just lean through the hatch and have a quick look.
Yep.
I'll check my track on Navionics, check my average speed for the previous 2 hours, if I'm happy, and if everything looks okay, put my head back down. If not, I'll go and I probably 50% of the time I need to get up and do something.
Yeah.
And then back down, and I'm dozing. I don't have a particularly great setup for sleeping. I sleep on the bunks. A lot of people are now sleeping crossover. I still sleep on the
I like the bunk,
the windward side.
Yeah.
My lee cloth's not overly tight, so I do roll about, but I don't mind that. I haven't ever felt fatigued. So I'm getting enough sleep. I don't want to fall into deep sleeps, and it just works for me at the moment. So I'll be dozing and waking all through the night. Yeah. If it's if there's land around, then I'll be I'll be coming in here for the last 48 hours. I didn't sleep at all. I was just watching everything and keeping an eye on stuff.
Yeah. How much sleep do you normally get? So you reckon you'd try for during the middle of the ocean?
I would say over a 24-hour period, I'll get easily 6 hours, if not 8 hours sleep.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah, pretty normal.
Yeah. Don't feel a problem with that.
Yeah. Too true. Okay, so the scenario now with your navigation, like you sort of enjoyed, you did pretty well with your celestial navigation. Do you still use it a bit? Play around with it?
No, I haven't. It's in a locker, but I've got everything, and we were chatting about that a couple of nights ago, saying some of the guys are doing fairly regular sun sights, and I probably should do that, but I'll be honest, I haven't.
Just interested to see who's enjoying the ride.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, it was a bit of a misery to start with the celestial, but eventually I gave myself a stern talking to and got on with it, and actually it was rewarding.
Yeah, that's cool. So what about electrical management? Like how's that going? And
it's been okay. I've got a multimeter that, if anything happens, which so far it hasn't, touched wood. I've had a cigarette lighter charger fail. The actual female part that you push the thing in failed. I've got spares of pretty much everything. It's been great. My lithiums are good.
You got enough power to do what you want?
Yeah, I do. I don't really use the telepilot much. Starlink takes a little bit more because you're inclined to leave it on more than you would do the Iridium Go.
Yeah.
But so far it's been good. It makes a huge difference if the sun's shining, obviously.
Yeah.
So if you get 2-3 bad days, then you've got to be a bit careful. But rarely do I get anything below. I normally have one full battery, the telepilot battery, which I can use if I need to. That remains at 100% nearly all of the time, and my other one very rarely gets down below.
So you're really
60%.
running off 100 amps or something?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't want just 100 amps.
No, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, so, when all this started, right up until the very end, Starlink was not on the agenda. Then Mini Starlink turned up and a couple had it at the start. And by Panama for $200, pretty much everyone bought one. You got one?
I got one, yeah.
You got one?
I did,
It's a game changer, but do you think it's good, bad or indifferent? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think I'd have to come down on the side of definitely good, because I can communicate immediately and efficiently back home, particularly with Kerry, to let her know everything's okay. So there is an argument. Look, you're in the middle of the ocean. Do you really want to be, looking at the racing results and football results and movies and this sort of thing? I think the purist would say, and if I'm feeling in a purist mood, I just don't turn it on. But on balance, it's a game changer, and it's a game changer for the better.
Yeah. Okay. So, how's your relationship with your South Atlantic wind vane, and how you're managing that and keeping it going, and all those sorts of things?
Yeah, it's continued to improve. I find it. I haven't got anything else to compare it with, but I find it absolutely excellent. South Atlantic have been a very good support team when things have gone wrong, and I think a few things have gone wrong, and they continue to upgrade the South Atlantic wind vane. I find it very, very good. I used to have the control line on a chain. I've changed that to control lines on cleats now, so I can get very marginal adjustment, whereas before I was finding that one chain link was giving me too much adjustment. So I find the control lines a lot better. It's a much lighter unit than everybody else's. There's only two of us now left with South Atlantics, myself and Josh. So there's no shortage of spares knocking about. But I find it good. It's a lightweight bit of kit. It's very simple. I think the major disadvantage is that we don't have a second rudder. So having two bits of wood in the water.
This is in comparison to the hydrovane, not for the sailing of the boat, but the hydrovane.
Yeah. I think you can probably get a bit more sail up and keep a straighter line, and that was my choice at the beginning, and I'm very happy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think it's an interesting point, because I know a lot of the guys that have swapped over to hydrovane, they say, look, the South Atlantic's okay, but obviously the hydrovane's more expensive. Maybe solider engineering, and you don't have to think much about it. Just stick it there. Did you find that you were at a disadvantage when you left because you hadn't sailed under a wind vane before? It's taken a while to settle in and understand all the tweaks that you need to adjust sensitivity. I'm
sure. I think I sailed with it, but not to the extent that I have now. So I've learnt, and there was definitely a disadvantage. And I think the guys that have put lots of miles in on these boats before the start have done a really good thing, and that's showing. I think my main disadvantage was Leg2, light winds. I couldn't get the boat to go. I was going around in circles a bit, and I lost a lot of ground in Leg2. I lost my tiller pilot, which I really needed then because it was light winds. But since then we've had better trade winds to sail and to use the self-steering gear, and I'd say I've pretty much nailed it now in terms of understanding how to get the best out of it. Yeah.
Have you had much of a work list to do here, get ready?
So I put copper coat on the boat, which has been brilliant, but the steel keel has reacted with the copper coat, which probably means I didn't put enough primer on rather than anything else. Kerry had the same problem on origami. So my big job, which I've just finished, was grinding off the copper coat and the primer from the back down to the bare steel on the keel and on the flange that sticks to the hull. And I've just finished repriming and put a hard antifoul on that now. So that will, I'm sure, stop, because there was quite a lot of pitting in the keel. Actually, it would have only got a lot worse, and I'm pleased I've got that done. The other main thing was South Atlantic sent me a beefed up bracket to hang the hydrovane on, which I didn't get a chance to fit in Tonga, which I've fitted here. So
that's cool.
So I'm pretty much done now. I can relax and enjoy the Fiji sun.
So what are you looking forward to most going forward now? Where's the buzz?
I'm really looking forward to the next 3 weeks for sure, because Kerry's coming out. We can relax. We'll have great time. I've got some other friends coming out from New Zealand.
Yeah.
So that'll be a great. I'm slightly apprehensive about when that all finishes and getting back into into race life. I'm actually really looking forward to Leg2 because I think it's going to have different challenges than we've had. I really enjoy navigation, and there's all sorts of different options to get through to Thursday Island or Darwin. So I'm really looking forward to doing work on that. The Indian Ocean is, Pacific Ocean for me at the beginning was amazing because I've never been in the Pacific. I've never been in the Indian Ocean either. So I feel the next leg is going to be, there's going to be more for us to do, and my biggest difficulty on the boat is boredom. I don't ever feel lonely, but I do get bored, so that for me sort of should work quite nicely.
Yeah.
I don't want too much adrenaline, but just a little bit.
Are you a person that visualizes things to make it happen? Like, have you visualized, coming to the end and all that sort of stuff? Have you that far down the track?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So what's next?
One leg at a time.
What's next after this? When it's all over? You must think about that a bit when you're out there.
Yeah, I think I said to you before, ask me a bit later and I'd give you the same answer. I don't know.
Okay.
Well,
so just to remind everyone, I meant to say this at the beginning, we did a great chat in Panama before you left there, so,
yeah.
Which gives all your background and all those sorts of things. So if you enjoyed this, go and have a look on the file of all the entrant interviews we did in Panama. Okay, that's all good. So I better let you go. You've got to launch your boat in about 20 minutes.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, good job, Adam. You're doing great, and happy to have you on board. British Bristol fashion and all that sort of stuff. You really are well organised. So good luck, eh?
Thanks, Tom.